Welcome to Verse Virtual's monthly poetry reading. It's hard to believe it's already February. This month has only seemed 100 years long. This past month. And this one seems to be doing the same sort of time thing. So the way this reading works, if you haven't been here before, I think most of you have, is that we do our features first. So, and then we do an open with either 2 short poems or 5 minutes, whichever comes first. And we do enforce that time limit because I really hate opens that drag on. And I think a lot of us do. So I'll introduce our first feature, and that will be Donna Hilbert. Donna Hilbert's latest book is Enormous Blue Umbrella, out from Moontide 2025. Her work has appeared in journals and broadcasts, including Eclectica, Gyroscope, Rattle, Sheila and the Geek, One Art, Vox Populi, the Writer's Almanac, and anthologies, including The Poetry of Presence 1 and 2, The Path of Kindness, The Wonder of Small Things. She writes and leads workshops from her home base in Long Beach, California. And please, if you're not the feature, mute yourself when she starts. Thank you.
Are you ready for me, Robbi?
I'm sorry, I was muted. Go ahead.
Okay.
I'm talking away.
All right. Well, thank you, Robbi, for inviting me. It's a pleasure to read for Verse Virtual. And I think that Barbara and I started the very first of the Verse Virtual. So it's great to be back with Barbara Crooker, who's one of my favorite poets. And okay, I don't think any of my poems need any explanation. I will just say that everything pretty much comes out of walking, going to the market, grief, just daily life, whatever happens to me, I write about it. And I think I'm just gonna go right through, and I think it will be easily followed.
Louder.
Louder?
I'm trying to mute myself and I'm having a hard time.
Okay. Well, I have my sound about as high as it'll go.
I just heard you better just now.
Okay.
I'm trying to mute me.
Maryann, troubleshoot your audio perhaps, or turn up, make sure you turn your volume up.
Okay.
Try it again, Donna.
Okay. Well, I've already given my little intro. I'm just gonna go through it here. After the birds begin to sing from the trees, before the sun makes its way over the bay, before the sky softens to gray, before the blaze of day begins, I rise, pull on my jeans, lace up my shoes, and enter the day before the neighbors are out, before traffic begins, before the phone rings, while the day is blank as a page, before I pick up my pen. Thank you, I say, let this day begin. Iron skillet, I am cleaning you now with coarse salt and a paper towel, skillet of my mother, grandmother, and her mother before her. You fried chickens, raised, killed, plucked, dressed on farms, in backyards, by generations of women whose children watched in fascination and fear. You've fried bacon, eggs over easy, baked cornbread, baked biscuits, grilled sandwiches, fried fold-over pies for farmers, mechanics, civil servants, teachers. Last night, I blackened a sea bass in your flat belly, where tonight potatoes and carrots will nestle and roast while an omelet browns on top of the stove. Skillet, rusty instrument of nurture, I praise your amazing utility, plurality of purpose, example of endurance. How easily you fashion meal after meal, serve us, feed us, reseason, restore. Passage at 19. I hold you to my breast for the slow ride home through falling snow. Flesh of my flesh, I am reborn, dancing in terror and joy, balanced on the eyelash of a blinking God. Chocolate milk. The day I feared I'd never stop crying, my tears a torrent taking me out to sea. Dr. Helene asked what soothed me as a sad and scared small kid. Chocolate milk, I said. Drink that, she said. Drink until you stop the crying. I drove through the drive-in dairy, bought a can of chocolate syrup and a gallon of milk, and drank and drank and drank until my life was sweet enough to greet my children, skipping through the door from school. Ribolita. I praise the way you save stale bread left on the shelf too long, rinds of Parmesan, tough to grate, old greens, not crisp enough for salad, but fine for soup, reboiled from what's on hand. I love the way you salvage bruised tomato, sprouting onion, imperfect squash, laying no morsel to mold, nothing to waste, filling each space with aroma of soup, saying, supper, manja, come, eat, come safely, come home. I've come to think of Gelson's as kind of my church, which I know is weird, but if you read the book, you'll get it. Good start. A good start to a regular day is pulling into Gelson's parking lot when the store opens at 7. It's my favorite time, too, the young clerk says, because this early, nobody's mad. Muffins are fresh and warm from the oven, shelves neat, laden with promise. Produce glistens like straight from the garden. And for once, hallelujah, there's a bin of organic potatoes, and nary a spud sprouts an eye. Papers are sticking together. I'm going to have to go below the desk and get a sip of water from my Yeti. I have to keep it down there in case I knock it over. It's only on the floor, not all over my desk. shorting us out. Okay. Mourning doves. Because the potted plant on the back porch needs water, I come nose to beak with a brooding dove. Too late to stop the water pouring from my pitcher, I flood the nest. Her mate watches from power lines. She moves to a nearby ledge, leaving the egg alone in the sodden pot. Throughout the day, I go outside and see the doves maintaining vigil. By nightfall, the pair is gone. I peer into the pot. Nothing remains of nest or feather, not a trace of shell. Because we grieve. Because we grieve, I hold you close, and from another plane, a current enters us both, grown women who need a mother, who need a daughter. We are fastened now until we don't know whose heart is beating in which body, or who is breathing, or what God to thank for hurtling this bolt, shocking us back into our altered selves. This boat for Tori Eden. Were you 2 or 3? Strapped to my lap in the kayak, I paddled into the wetlands, past the sign that read, "Go back." Herons, pelicans, cormorants flew close enough to touch, and sun dazzled the murk below. In this boat, we can go anywhere, you said, then pressed your cheek to my breast and slept. You were almost grown when you chose the unknown water. If there were signs ahead, I failed to heed or even see them. And another for Tori. Summer. Solstice again. One year we waded into the sea to wash crystals. It was all about feng shui. The water was cold, the sky cloud gray. Back in the house, you fingered your name onto the foggy windows with hearts for O's, frames, and punctuation. I took a photo of this. Now, it's proof you were here, and for a time, happy. Bad weather. I have been the fallen bird, waiting for the ride that never came, walking home in beating rain. I have been the forlorn traveler, familiar in the corridors of waiting. I have been the fallen bird, pulled out of grief's bad weather, caressed and held together, spoon-fed until I wished to die, then live again. Spiritus. I waken to the sound of breathing so loud I think it's you beside me. But no, love, it's me, my breath, alone. The weight. I waken to your hand holding mine, you on the floor by the bed. The morning after I said, we are through. Your tender vigil coaxed the buds of love to sprout again. After the dormant season, when I had ceased belief in anything but grief. More. I want more I want more pages in my day planner with its tidy squares and room on the side for to-dos to be checked off. And I want that list to never end. I want one page after another and another to appear in unending supply, the way peanut butter jars appear in the cupboard. And I'm aghast at their number and know you've been to that big box store once again. So it takes me forever to find the tiny jar of saffron stuck in the back. I want more dreams of falling for the joyful relief at awakening from the chasm of sleep to consult my day planner and tick off tasks that annoy me. I want more days to gripe about my tiny hillocks of crumbs you've left on the counter while slicing bread from Gusto's on 4th Street, bought in such quantity and stuffed in the freezer that I can't find my tiny pint of mint chip ice cream. Then the drip drop of red wine, the drip drop of tomato from the salad you made for me last night. I want more of that on the counter. I want more mornings when your heavy breathing wakens me from sleep, when your 5-pillow chateau threatens to topple and smother me, and I get up with the sun and head out for my walk when the glorious unfolding of the day is waiting. Thank you.
Thank you for that beautiful set. We really, all of us need those poems right now, and I'm sure Barbara's as well.
Yeah.
And the link
Yeah.
for Donna's book, her new book, is up in the chat. I'm going to copy it again for those of you who came a little.
I see Mark shining it.
Okay, I'm for those who came a little late and missed it, I am going to put it up again, and before Barbara starts, I will put up her link to her books, all of her books, again, and then I'll introduce her. So there you go.
I would just like to flash the back of my book, and I see Mark Danowski, who was so kind to give me kind words on the back of my book. And
yes,
he was so kind to write a piece for Verse Virtual. And I'm very grateful also to James Cruz and Carrie Gunter Seymour and Rosemary Watola Traumer for their blessings. So, and thank you all for being
thank you for the reading, and thank you for those of you who are here. I think maybe Mark's the only one who wrote one of those blurbs. Thank you for that, and thank you for coming. Okay, I'm going to introduce Barbara.
I'm going to mute myself.
If I can find it. Oh, no. Yes, of course I closed it, didn't I? I should have printed it. I'm sorry for that.
Robbi, honestly, I don't care. I'll just read poems.
It's okay. I got it. Okay, Barbara Crooker is the author of 12 chapbooks and 10 full-length books of poetry, including Some Glad Morning, Pitt Poetry Series, University of Pennsylvania Poetry Press, longlisted for the Julie Suk Award from Jakar Press. The Book of Kells, which won Best Poetry Book of 2019, award from Poetry by the Sea, and Slow Wreckage, Grayson Books 2024. Her other awards include Grammy Spoken Word finalists. That's pretty cool. The W.B. Yeats Society of New York Award, the Thomas Merton Award of the Sacred, and 3 Pennsylvania Council Fellowships in Literature. Her work appears in literary journals and anthologies, including the Bedford Introduction to Literature. So a whole new generation of writers are being introduced to Barbara's works. That's wonderful. Take it away, Barbara.
Okay, thank you, Robbi. And thank you for inviting me. Like Donna, I've been part of Verse Virtual, I think, from its very beginning. And once Donna and I got to read together in California, which was wonderful. So I enjoyed your reading immensely, and I'd like to come over for some sea bass. Okay, so this is my 10th book, Slow Wreckage. Its themes are aging and the body, and climate change and the planet. So it's a comedy. Yeah, no, it's not a comedy, but it's what I've got. The first section has some poems about family. Diorama. A shoebox set on its side. The knotty pine paneling brown. A small nuclear family in early American chairs. Macaroni and cheese in the oven, the crust thickening on a loaf of banana bread. The den, an altar to the black and white TV. There's a fireplace in the living room, but no smoke in the chimney, and no one listens to the hi-fi where records, shiny black platters, once spun, music threading from the scratchy needle. Mother stands by the stove, waiting to serve. Father has tamped down his anger for the night. The children are quiet, waiting for the future. And I might have given a tiny explanation to dioramas, which were something that we used to create in elementary school out of shoeboxes. I'm sure they don't exist anymore, as are most of the things from my youth. Car Hop, and this is one of my very few prose poems, taken by Chris Buckley. My virus thingy wants to do something. No thanks. Okay, taken by Chris Buckley in his journal Salt, which is one of my favorite places. So if you don't know it, I recommend it. Car Hop. Well, I was 20, my last summer working at Patty's Charcoal Drive-In, senior year in college coming up, and what on earth was I going to do next? I made 75 cents an hour, plus tips. All those shiny quarters. Well, some went down the throat of the jukebox. 96 tears, what becomes of the brokenhearted? Reach out, I'll be there. Most of them went to pay for my education, something my grandchildren will never understand, but still possible in the late 60s. What my father, child of immigrants, didn't understand was why I didn't get a job after high school. I was a girl after all. Who did I think I was? Who cared if I was second in my class, honors and advanced placements, aced my Regents exams? At least I didn't have to worry about the jungles of Southeast Asia, like the boys in my class. But what was I going to do with this degree in English literature and art history? I was tired of waiting on boys, cars full of boys, going nowhere, catching that last train to Clarksville. The Stones were singing Paint It Black, and California Dreamin' seemed as impossible as going to the moon. I was terrified my father was right, and some endless office job was on the horizon, alphabetizing, filing, touch typing, and steno skills. Was that all I was good for? This empty parking lot, burger wrappers rattling the edges of the sticky August wind, the world already shifting, but none of us knew it yet. And honestly, two summers of working as a car hop paid for 2 years of my undergraduate life. So a lot of the poems in the first section are me looking back and taking stock. Mirror. Who is this woman in my mirror? The one who looks like she's been worked on by Rembrandt or Durer. Why are there mail sacks sagging under her chin? Wasn't it just last week I was doing my hair on rollers the size of orange juice cans? Why is my scalp pink as an eraser showing through? What happened to my snappy ponytail that switched and danced when I cheered? I still feel fresh as that first day of school, new plaid skirt, box of sharpened crayons, pencils that no one has written with yet. Why is this young man from down the street shoveling my driveway? Doesn't he know my shoulders have lifted great burdens? Can't he see I've already hefted huge shovelfuls of sorrows and stars? Okay, this is another one that I don't think I have to explain to this group, but when I read on college campuses, I sure do. Forecast. Writing on a legal pad, extra fine rollerball pen, hoping for a poem, one that might 25 drafts later appear in a magazine or a dead tree journal, as the kids might say. I recently read that no one is reading anymore. Attention spans shortened to 140 character bursts. Goodbye, Dickens. Farewell, Dostoevsky. The ice caps are melting and the forecast is extreme. Wine makes this less extreme for an hour or so, but then the news comes on and all of it is bad. An administration so morally bankrupt, comparing it to the Third Reich seems like a foregone conclusion. Our government is constructing camps, paying for it with our taxes. Contractors fatten like ticks. At night, the sullen moon rises, the air thick with humidity and insider trading. We toss and turn, but the blood sun sears through the ozone while California burns. Little something sinister brewing in the Gulf. And because no one is going to read this, because I might as well chisel a stele or scratch on papyrus, I yammer on. Outside my window, a black and white woodpecker is tapping his manifestos on a royal typewriter. The newspaper, with its terrible stories, rolls off the presses, inky and black. So most of the poems in this book I wrote over 10 years ago, but they're still somewhat relevant, aren't they? And now, when I wondered in that earlier poem about, what do you do with a degree in English literature and art history? Well, one of the things I do is write poetry about art. So this is one of them. I have a series of poems in this section about famous painters in their later years. So this is one from the late painting series. It's called Path Under the Rose Arches, which is the title of a painting by Monet. Paul Cézanne gives me my epigraph. Monet is only an eye, yet what an eye. A child's scribbles become the flowering arches, broad scrawls, sprawls of color you can't quite see, braided ribbons of burgundy, navy, sienna, ochre, umber. Each arch opens a passage, a tunnel, a path that leads on. No more working en plein air, no more striving for the elusive moment, no more series, stacks of wheat, the cathedral in sunlight, trains at the station, no more smog, smoke, fog, the sun laying down on the sheaves. So many ways to say goodbye. The short, flicked brushstrokes that tried to catalog light's changes now become gestures, swoops, and swirls. Monet said, "My poor eyesight makes me see everything in a complete fog. And I'm feeling this too, something not yet diagnosed, but needing more light to read." Typos flit off the screen, escape my scrutiny. Lines fly off the page during a reading. But I'm not ready to quit, and neither was he. Despite his growing cataracts, he picked up a brush, having memorized the placement of pigments on his palette, and started in on the water lilies, les grandes décorations, from the garden of his memory, removing the horizon, letting the flowers float on a deep blue waterfall of radiant light. And I have a charming section, I'm sorry, I'm being sarcastic, called "All of My Poems Lately Are Elegies." And that seems to be what we're doing at this age, but I'm going to move into the final section, which is more the kinds of poems that I generally write, which are lyrics, which are nature poems. But it's hard to be a nature poet when we're at the end of nature. Okay, this one I wrote at artist colony that I've been to many times in Virginia, called Late Night Martinis. Okay, I've only got one martini poem in this book. I have 2 martini poems in my previous one, just saying. Out beyond the ambient light, glass of gin, rumor of vermouth, a few olives, we're sitting on black wrought iron lawn chairs, talking poetry and friendship, love and loss. Above us, the indifferent stars glitter, cold light. A chorus of coyotes calls from the woods. We're told we come from spindrift and stardust. No doubt about the dust to which we will return. Those stars are set in patterns. There's a ladle, a dragon, a celestial belt. We wobble in our orbits, unsure and alone. Will there be a gathering by the river or a blank nothing at the end of the day? My long-stemmed glass, which is now half empty, still seems to me half full. And this is one for where we are now, February, or at least where I am. I'm in Pennsylvania, in the eastern part of the country, and I'm looking out my window. It's about to snow this afternoon. February. Snow-covered fields rolling out on either side, like the gauze that covers my foot and ankle, the wound that just won't heal. An abscess like an absence, this blank landscape, the blank alphabet of trees. It's too cold to be out. Small animals huddle in burrows or shelter in hedgerows. Too cold for most birds to be flying. Already the losses adding up. My cousin's husband who didn't wake up. 2 high school friends who walked down that long corridor. The friend who suddenly couldn't breathe in the middle of the night. It's the season of no return, no coming back, with the green grass and crocuses doing their hocus pocus with purple and gold scarves. No, this is what isn't. The unwritten email, the empty chair. This is it, the last inning, the final quarter, the must be met deadline. Every field, every hollow fills up with snow. And then I'll end with this one, which is towards the end of the book, ending with something a little brighter and a little more hopeful, and has one of my favorite titles. Goodbye, winter, you bad boyfriend. Get the gravel-strewn road. Take your cold shoulder with you too, your icy breath. I'm tired of your hard freezes, the little snow squalls that litter the ground like so many flakes of dandruff. I want a new man with a soft touch who brings me jonquils in green tissue paper, whose voice is like rain, who paints the sky robin's egg blue just for me, just because I want it. Thank you.
You just made my day. Thank you so much. Those were two just what the doctor ordered features. Thank you so much. And we will segue into our open. And I can take one more person on the open mic who hasn't already been put on the list. And I assume those who are on the list know who you are. So people who came in after that, would one of you like to speak up to read 2 short poems or 5 minutes, whichever comes first? I can call on a couple of you. I think Hedy is on the list. Ruth, do you want to read? Ruth, you have to unmute to tell me if you're there. Okay. Mark?
There.
Dan-
No, I have to leave. I have time.
Okay.
Right.
So Mark Danowski, do you want to read on the open?
Oh, I was just messaging. I have to run away, but I appreciate it.
Or Alan?
Is Mary on the list?
She doesn't
Robbi?
want to, she's not feeling well, so she doesn't want to
Oh.
be.
It's her birthday.
Oh, I didn't know that. Well, happy birthday, and I'm glad you're here, Mary. But she doesn't feel well, so
Sure, I'll read.
all right. So you're last, before me.
Figures.
That's okay. You're last but not least. So let's start with Marc Petrie because he was here first.
All right. I am muted. Can people see me? Okay, first I want to thank Barbara. Barbara, where's my mind? Donna, for her blurb on the back of my second book of poetry, Poems of Nature and Despair. I love what you wrote. And I'm going to start my brief reading with a poem from my new collection, which is from the Anthropocene. I am having a publication reading at Arvida Books in Tustin on the 15th of February at 3 p.m. So I hope some of you can make it. And as you can tell, this is the same spot in Camarillo 2 different times. And I'm going to read a Ventura County poem, which is called Love Making, a Foggy Memory. This would be the night we made love on the beach, between blankets on the sand at Seacliff near the Rincon in Ventura County. The tide, low enough, it separated oceans from rocks. A dark land without shadows hid our nascent selves, couched in fog's psychedelic haze, our nude bodies flapping adolescent sea lions, eyes cast on the sea's wavering streak of silver moonlight. Tonight, the Orange County sky is clear of fog, which covers my memory within a shroud. Did this really happen? Did I really live here? Robbi, it's at 3 p.m. 3 p.m. Okay, this is one I wrote this week at Stanford. I think we all need to feel good about ourselves and we need some self-care right now more than ever because the battles are coming. One day at Stanford University. A day so perfectly blue, the sky warm by noon. I walked across the university quad to buy a sweatshirt at the bookstore. Noticed Adirondack chairs on the lawn, facing the claw fountain and the apex sun. I wanted nothing more than to sit facing the fountain. All grief melted into streams of water, sprayed into the air before gravity took hold. I needed no more than to be in this place. Any evil delivered my way left my body. Mental arthritis disappeared. To think I was old did not embarrass me. Without closing my eyes, I saw the long blue coast from Santa Catalina to Santa Cruz. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark. I put a link to anyone local who's able to come to Arvida below.
I'd love if Donna could come, but I don't know if she can, but I'd love to see her again.
Yeah, it's kind of a long way,
Yeah, it is.
but maybe she can. David, it's your turn.
Thank you, Robbi. This poem, hello, Barbara. It's so good to see you and hear you read. My poem is called This Found World. Wishes move with each morning's prevailing sadnesses, so many of which can fall on our heads at once, like rain in a cloudburst. Escaping sadness isn't an option. Everyone comes armed with instincts for survival without a clue what they're surviving for, always knowing survival here isn't an option either, not even for the innumerable stars. This morning's sunrise is obscured by the dense haze over the river and horizon. Yet some patches of light spill off high clouds, opening earth for business in a feathery glow. Soon enough, sun lifts above the mist and haze, but by then interest has drifted elsewhere. We take our models from what's around us, a world we come to blindly illiterate in every respect. Sun is a teacher, as are the indifferent suns whose light also spill lessons over our ignorance. An hour or so of this kind of loose thinking and a person finds they've walked into mid-morning without learning anything useful to hold the rest of the day. How stubbornly ignorance hangs on. Once, soon after entering college in Fresno, I went hiking with Jim, a new friend from school. We didn't share any classes. His major was economics. Mine was to keep far away from his. We went to the high Sierras below the tree line. It was a crisp September, cool enough to need a jacket when not walking. Air so clean, each breath the scent of pines. The only other animals I recall were birds, juncos, which I knew, nutcrackers, which Jim knew, and one western tanager we both knew. On reaching our objective, we looked out on an ocean. Wave after wave of blue and purple ridges as far as could be seen. I remember that clearly, and the conversation we did not speak, transfixed by such beauty. After graduation, Jim and I rode a few times, but soon exigencies of going separate ways overtook, and we lost touch, even to this day. My path has unearthed enough clarity to make life as transparent as a vat of chocolate. I had more certainty in college. Take away the sun, take away the moon, take away the stars and infinite empty spaces that straddle the whole of it, and what's left? Only us on this found world and its gift of the present. It's not much to brag on, but we make do. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Our next reader is Maryann Hurtt.
Well, I have a Sierra's poem also. So the poem is titled The Wizard of Awe. And this is Mount Huxley, High Sierras, 1956. My father smiles into the camera, ready to take on the world in all its treacherous ways. A 40-pound pack tight to his back, a heartbeat tripping wild in anticipation. 60 years later, he tells the story of thin air, slip sliding gravel, the last push hugging a narrow, almost straight up vertical to the top, 13,092 feet summit. How he lost his voice, and how altitude can do that, but he always knew the real why. Absolute, unflinching, look you straight in the eye, awe, the Wizard of Awe. I'm missing my father today real bad.
Was it his birth?
What was that? It was
Was
just
it
that when
his-
I was, not his birthday, but it just sort of, when I read that poem and think about my dad in the Sierras, I get lonesome for him. This poem was about my husband's other parents. It's called Cosmic Soup. More tottering than walking now, but still out when frost soaks her feet. The old woman makes the trip to the garage where she scoops seed from feed-filled garbage bins. Then around back where behind white pines, the buck waits as jays and crows squawk morning commotion, while Bob, gone 1 year, hovers nearby. Somehow in this cosmic soup, he is now a young black bear, peering through brambles and brush, checking that she and all their kin made it through another night. He will lumber over a little later, knowing she saves the best for him. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for soldiering through a difficult poem for you to read.
Those three people really mean a whole lot to me.
Thanks so much. Our next reader is Skip Busby.
Skip Bushby.
Bushby. Okay, I can't read my own handwriting.
That's all right. By the bush. It happens all the time. Thank you very much for the privilege of all of your company, especially Donna and Barbara, whom I was given the initial invitation, and I'm thrilled to be here. My poems ostensibly are outside of buildings, spaces, people crowd and have all their problems. Ironically enough, for 50 years, I was a builder, a designer, an architect, but all of my literature, writing, fiction, and poetry take place outside of those frame spaces. That by way of context. This poem is called Harmonium. It will come. That moment when walking a woodland trail, you will stand in the shiver of trees, the shaking of leaves severally or singly, one by one. You will stand in silence, feeling the tumble down, the settle, a scurry of wind, no bigger than yourself, rising up, spinning boisterously about, bursting back to ground. You will stand then in the aged presence of quiet giants, anchored, swaying as masts and sails, their cut leaf branches letting go what late were sheaves of green, brilliant tonalities now, a quilted coloring, blanketing earth, then a blaze of snow. You may sit or stand or shuffle barefoot through this gentle accretion, sloshing waves of leaves, when as a child, wading in the wash of your first ocean, and know, looking up to the trees, bare branches, their waving open arms, orchestrating from within the silent gyre of unseen things. Second poem is titled Stay With Me, and underneath it, I've dedicated it to all of my loves. And I posted this the other day with my dog Cooper on my lap. Because just like the actors say, never act with children or dogs, I chose the reverse of that because Cooper's a pretty good looking dog. Stay with me. Stay with me. Don't go. Let us watch the rising sun once more for all that is good and green. This earth's wonder, so much here to see and still be seen. Stay a while. Please don't go. Share with me these winter days, though dark and cold outside, but bright and warm here, gentle besides this fire's glow. Come sit and talk and be. Let's take it slow. As our days lengthen, each day a blessing, a gift thrice fold. Let us share with others these rays of lightening colors we've yet to miss because we've stayed. I long to know as much as we may about all things. We are each to each, graced sunrises, brighter than the too soon twilight that comes sudden, dropping swift and low. Please stay with me. Don't go. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and welcome to First Virtual Open Mic. I hope you'll come back.
Thank you.
Our next reader is Jimmy.
Thank you, Robbi. So I'd like to say hello to everyone from here in beautiful downtown Fiji, where every second is perfect. Every second is a wonderful cranberry moment. I'm going to read 2 short poems from Falling Off the Empire State Building, where I won the Rattle Chapbook Prize. That was pretty cool. First about my father, the second about my mother. The wake-up call. When it was time to wake me up to go fishing, he stood at the end of the bed and held my foot in his hands as if it were a piece of crystal, the way he must have done when I was a baby. But I was too tired to wake up and too young to understand how much he needed me to be his son. Second about my mother. My mother's shoes. My mother's shoes filled the bottom of her closet when she died. They were in such poor condition, they screamed at me about my lack of attention. I paused and stared at them for a few minutes, listening carefully to their chastisement. Slowly, I picked them up, studying each one as if it were an ancient relic of some bygone civilization. My sister handed me a trash bag. She didn't want to be the one to do it. I filled the large green plastic bag, all the while feeling that I was committing a sacrilege. I walked to the dumpster like a thief hiding evidence from a crime. I dropped the bag in next to an abandoned flower pot. When I slammed shut the door to the dumpster, it echoed like a prison cell closing around my heart. I thought I'd throw in my email in the chat if anybody wants to attend any of my Zoom events. I have a few regulars here. You're welcome to contact me and I can tell you what they're like. Thank you, everybody.
Yes, do try his events. They're a little bit different from others that you have been to because they entail discussion and not an open mic. They're really interesting and give you an opportunity to get to know the feature reader and the topic. Our next reader is Penelope Moffat. Penelope?
Yeah, hi. I actually wasn't going to read because of my Zoom issues.
Okay, I really don't see any, but that's okay. I'll go on to the next person. if you'd like. Hedy, you're up.
Oh, is my voice too loud?
No.
Okay, well, hi, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you, Donna and Barbara. It was wonderful. Barbara, such a pleasure to see you again after so long and to delight in your wonderful poems. I'll be reading two pantoums from my latest poetry collection. It's an ekphrastic collection, and I will have to share screen for that. Oh, I have to send a request for sharing. I thought that I could. Could I share screen, Robbi? Because I'd like to project the painting before I read the poem.
Let me make you co-host, and
Okay.
that way I don't have to give everybody permission.
Okay. I'll try again. It's working. That's great. Okay. So most of the poems in this book are inspired by women authors, mostly surrealist artists. And I'm going to read two poems inspired by two of my favorite surrealist artists, Remedios Varo and Juanita Guccione. The painting you're seeing is by Remedios Varo, and it is named Harmony. And it inspired me to write the following poem. I'm going to show the text as I read. Or call me a hoarder if you will, but try to understand. Each and every object in my drawers has a story of its own. When I revisit the selves I once was, minute black silhouettes align themselves over the power lines of my mind as on a score, until the outline of an alter ego erupts, adding a silent note. When I revisit the selves I once was, minute black silhouettes rub over every object's skin, absorbing smells and vibrations, until the outline of an alter ego erupts, adding a silent note. And would they engage in a dialogue in the utmost darkness? Rub over every object's skin, absorbing smells and vibrations, like the rosary stringed with pearls my mom loved so much. And would they engage in a dialogue in the utmost darkness? Map the vestibules of memory, run fingers over shining veins? Like the rosary stringed with pearls my mom loved so much, boxes of leftover yarn, her crocheted creations tucked into drawers. Map the vestibules of memory, run fingers over shining veins. Call it a bric-a-brac, fit for those of us prone to engage in bricolage. Boxes of leftover yarn, her crocheted creations tucked into drawers. A bleached sand dollar that might become your grandson's treasure. Call it a bric-a-brac fit for those of us prone to engage in bricolage. Nothing is what it seems, only the meaning invested in its arcane language. A bleached sand dollar that might become your grandson's treasure, and just the sight of a handwriting triggers the deepest emotions. Nothing is what it seems, only the meaning invested in its arcane language. I keep digging as I become the archaeologist of my own experience. Okay, the next poem is inspired by Juanita Guccione's painting titled 3 Women and 3 Owls. The image is a little bigger, so I have to show it to you going up and down. And she is an American artist who lived many, many years in Algeria. And her son, is a very famous poet that some of you may know, Jellul Marbrouk. And he curated his painting, her painting, and many of her paintings are in many famous museums. So this painting inspired me the following poem, another pantoum. Or can't you see how we're weaving ourselves tight? Didn't you think you'd soar high up when you wore a miniskirt? I lowered my hemline, surrendering to ghost owls' hoods, following the rhythm of my elders' everlasting refrains. When she visited the Louvre, she wanted to wear her skin bare. I lowered my hemline, surrendering to ghost owls' hoods, wore a keychain around my wrist that didn't open any doors. When she visited the Louvre, she wanted to wear her skin bare, chest open to the drifts of wind as she'd march with Delacroix's banner. Wore a keychain around my wrist that didn't open any doors, afraid to face the black sun of melancholy, sung by Gérard de Nerval. Chest open to the drifts of wind as she'd march with Delacroix's banner. She entered the triple dance, a sarong loosely wrapped around her hips, afraid to face the black sun of melancholy, sung by Gérard de Nerval. I conjure my younger self steps, eager to unlock the darkness. She enters the triple dance, a sarong loosely wrapped around her hips. The three of us dive into the emerald waters under the blackened sun. I conjure my younger self steps, eager to unlock the darkness. You didn't soar high up, still unable to satisfy your hunger. The three of us dive into the emerald waters under the blackened sun, united at last in our quest for meaning, weaving ourselves tight. Thank you.
Thank you, Hedy. That's very lovely, as always.
Thank you.
Our next reader is Michelle.
Michelle?
Yes,
Which Michelle?
you. You're the only Michelle that I see.
Oh, I didn't agree to read, but
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you said you wanted to. All right, never mind then. Jane?
Thank you, Robbi. And thank you, all the readers. It's wonderful. It's been a long time since I've been to one of these. So I was going to read something wintry, but with everything else that's going on, I just wasn't in the mood. And I was sad because Marc has published at least one of these, and he left. The first one is called Rare Beasts. The surface is broken by my boat, the hard heads of turtles, fish stretching their limits, and dead branches that have nothing left to defend. Then a snake. I understand those better safe than sorry turtles leaping from their logs, curious carp that briefly visit our dimension. But this snake, this nonchalant swimmer with such composure, decides that I'm of no concern. Yet my heart pounds, as when holding my breath for scans of my organs, or listening for what to expect while counting backwards. So when do I get that devil-may-care spirit, the glassy eyes of that scarce species that never worries? Maybe that snake's heart beat a little too fast when he saw me coming. And why do I hope that's true? Our kind is always crashing in the calm between two thorned shores, the threat we feel or the threat we are. I raised my paddle high. Minnie likes to read along with me. And the second one is my son spent most of his 20s in Korea. And he has the same affliction about cats. It's called The Strays of Incheon. At 2 a.m. Korea time, my son roams the streets carrying treats for stray cats. They run to him, weaving through his legs. He wanders before returning to his single room, sewed into a slim alley, crisscrossed by wires. It's morning here when he calls, rants about the faults and obligations of his world. I stay quiet. I don't know where he's going, but I'm sure he isn't calling for directions. His city cools, sloughs off days of tramping feet and roaring motorbikes delivering bibimbap. He sends video of a cat the neighbors call Little Miss Flower. She darts from under a Hyundai plastered with emojis. Unattached, they meet between the streetlights, breathing the easy darkness. But couldn't he do this someplace closer? Then I remember a similar distance and how it opened a late night knowledge that still comes running to me. Thank you.
Thank you, Jane. Alan?
Thanks, Robbi, and thanks to Barbara and Donna. Just wonderful today. Really appreciate them. One poem, it's called A Prayer at 4 a.m. Dear God of open all night, if I may be so familiar, though we hardly know one another to say much of anything of such importance. But here we are together, chugging down the track as if driven by an old steam boiler, whistling though we never quite arrive, or come up short when the yawning becomes a canyon at the station. Still, how happy to be in your presence, no matter how unwelcome my own bed feels. You as forbidding tonight as you were to my ancestors, the way you shushed past their doors and bid them dim their lights for anxious sleep. But I thank you for this wakefulness you offer in its place, so I may wrestle with myself, as Jacob once grappled with the angel. Let me stay here close by your side, but at a safe distance, lest you set the houseplants ablaze. No matter, I will shudder in your presence as dawn breaks and join the others, this long line of weary ones, those who are still wide awake and insist on calling whatever we have missed our down payment on forever.
Thank you. That was wonderful. It's always great to hear you read.
Thanks,
So
Robbi.
I have room for one or two more people if you want to read. Anybody? If not, I will just read a couple of poems. Okay. It's too bad Mark left. This is a poem that he picked up that he's going to publish in March sometime. So I need to find it. Vesuvius at Home. It has an epigraph by Emily Dickinson. I judge from my geography volcanoes nearer here. I remember the clatter my mother's pressure cooker made on winter afternoons, how it spat steam, played a tune. Sometimes she sang along. Once, the gauge shot off, embedding like a bullet in the ceiling. She just stood there, gazing, as green goo geysered, slight smile on her lips. My mother loved her pot. I'd even say she was inspired by its potential and her own. She knew volcanoes can be still for years, though magma brews beneath. Maybe she sensed they were alike, she and this pot, that she could capture the force of the words that fueled her, the ones she muttered under her breath all day in 2 languages. She trained me to believe my words had heft, taught me to embrace the danger, learn the craft of channeling all the rich profusion that nascent power might allow. And one more. Hearing Jimmy read that poem about his mother's shoes reminded me of a poem of mine, which I think was also in One Art last year. My mother's purse. Cleaning out her bedroom closet, I discovered you in a graveyard of old purses, stocked with cents, ticket stubs, and subway tokens, a pair of yellowed leather gloves, pale fingers like the waving tentacles of an anemone, capacious as the womb that housed me, wallet bulging like the cheeks of a fat squirrel, dispensary of coins and folded bills, condiments and sweets, full of wonders as the galaxy, both hospital and supermarket, bowling ball. You weighed her shoulder down, source of memory, surrogate for the one who carried you. You'll join her gold teeth, comb, all that will mean nothing once I'm gone. Thank you so much. Thank you again to our features and to everyone on the open and to everyone who is watching, whether you're in person or you watch this later on the video, which I fortunately remembered to do this time. So there will be a video. Thanks again. And I'm going to stop that video now so you can chat and do what you need to do and say goodbye.